Greetings shippers, welcome back, and it's time to take a look at yet another ship. Today's outing is going to take us back into the realm of Femslash, to a pairing that people are expecting a lot from, both in canon and fanon, and we're going to find out why. That is, of course, at the time of this recording. We're going to be talking about Catradora, the pairing of Catra and Adora from She-Ra and the Princesses of Power. This series is still in its first season at the time of this recording, so there may be many changes that come to this ship over time, so this may be a pairing and fandom we revisit. Before we get started, if you haven't already, please do follow on social media to stay up to date, know when we're streaming, and just come on over and chit chat about fandom. It's a good time, I swear. There is a lot to get to, so without further ado, let's get started. Catradora comes to us from the 2018 She-Ra Princess of Power reboot, She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, which had its first season released on November 13th, 2018, the most recent season at the time of this recording. While the series acknowledges its 1980s predecessor, it does not focus on it, and is highly dedicated to doing its own thing and presenting its own spin on the characters, while retaining most of the core characters and some of the themes. As a result, it is the sort of reboot that one can go into without prior knowledge of the original series. In fact, some argue that prior series knowledge may prove to be a hindrance. Series creator Noelle Stevenson, while very aware of the first She-Ra, was not an avid fan before being selected to helm the series, which she was asked to do by a huge She-Ra fan and executive at DreamWorks, Beth Cannon, who happened to be a fan of Stevenson's well-known acclaimed queer comic series, Lumberjanes. On her experience with She-Ra, Stevenson had this to say: "I think she's such an iconic character that I, of course, was aware of her, just because she is so entrenched in the cultural zeitgeist. I had some awareness of the Masters of the Universe world, you know. People I was working with, friends of mine in the animation industry, who have that really strong attachment to it, it was sort of working with them that infused me with this love of the property. That was something that had been brewing for a few years, and when She-Ra ended up coming onto my plate, that was really exciting for me, because it was this interest I'd been developing for a while. As a result of this, she potentially felt freer to modify things than another creator with an older, more nostalgic attachment might have, which is seen as either a positive or a negative depending upon one's view of both series. There is also a contingent of people who feel that the original She-Ra is being unjustly maligned, or at the very least diminished, and that its contributions and steps that it made forward that were progressive for its time are being ignored in order to bolster the reboot, while other fans feel that the two versions can coincide peacefully. From the start, Noelle had big plans for She-Ra, and what she wanted the series to say and be for all viewers, but particularly for young girls, as she wanted to bring diversity and nuance to all the characters, allowing for a wide array of expressions of gender, so that hopefully all viewing would find someone to identify with, both emotionally and physically. She also wanted to reclaim princesses as a positive image, as they can be much maligned, and she wanted to be sure that each character has an arc and feels fully fleshed out, and not merely an accent or archetype. How successful they have been in this will depend upon who you talk to. This interest in character development, or at the very least characterization, is what has led to this series' dominant pairing at the time of this recording, though some feel it is safe to say it will remain so. That of Catradora. The relationship between Adora and Catra is central to the series, particularly this first season, that sees them go from the closest of friends to enemies, though the enemies must be stated with a question mark, as their connection is still clear. More enemies in the sense of Eric and Charles from the X-Men, or Superman and Lex, a relationship dynamic Stevenson has stated she was inspired by. On Catra and Adora's hero-villain relationship, she had this to say: "I am a sucker for this type of relationship. It showed up in a lot of my work. The idea of two people who are tied together by their experiences, but also have some key differences that push them tragically down different paths, is very interesting to me. I've always loved the nemesis relationship. I think there's a lot of the DNA of a relationship like Clark Kent and Lex Luthor from Smallville in here. I grew up on that and really love that. There are a lot of relationships like that in comics in general. These people who mean the world to each other and hate each other, but love each other, and it's all wrapped up together. It's a really confusing bundle, and I love it." So unlike certain ships, this is not one where the shipper has to search very hard for the types of moments that tend to ignite fans, who in all honesty really need very little to go on, so She-Ra provides moments in abundance, not just for this pairing either. So what is it that has made Catra and Adora the fandom favorite? Well, as mentioned, some of it is the focus on these two. It could be argued that these two's relationship receives the most development, and also plays out some very obvious tropes that would fall under a line of reasoning that has existed for quite a while in fandom, but can also be known as the Stucky argument. The assertion that if one of the members in the pairing was of the opposite sex, then the couple would be canon, or perceived as likely to become canon based on the situations the couple are presented in. This was particularly cited following the 8th episode of Season 1, Princess Prom, which involved, amongst other things, an extended dance sequence between Catra and Adora, also the saving of one's enemy's life. Which brings us to archetypical relationships. Now, while the characters themselves may not be cookie-cutter renditions of ideas, their relationships relationship is heavily inspired by extremely trope-heavy and cliché interactions, which many fans adore. There are typically two relationship types that garner the most amount of shippers when presented, though there are always some outlier fandoms with exceptions. In general, these relationships are the best friends, which presents the fan with the potential of friends to lovers, or the antithesis of enemies, foye, kismitude, which presents the fan with the potential of enemies or rivals to lovers. With Catradora, the fan is given an exciting bonus of a combination of the two, with potential that it could come full circle, the relationship arc of friends to enemies to lovers and back to friends. This means that the relationship is layered and has many potential angles it can be examined from, and hence many jumping on points, which means it appeals to a wider body of shippers. Those who want to fix the relationship, those who want to dwell in the angst, those who want missing scenes or secret moments, those who want it to be dark, those who want to focus on the past pre-canon world, which is also briefly displayed. The series plays with many moments in its own canon that are often already the backdrops for fics. This is exemplified in the 11th episode Promise, wherein Adora and Catra find themselves completely separated from their respective sides and forced to escape a hostile fortress together while reliving memories of their childhood and confronting long-past joys and resentments. The show is very dedicated to showcasing these two's emotional connection, including many moments that can be read as UST, from lingering glances to poses held just a little too long. Some feel these moments are designed to be read as shippable, as one of this new She-Ra's missions is to create a clearly queer-friendly show in theme as well as execution. Stevenson has already been asked about the potential of canon Catradora, and had this to say: "I don't want to put a narrative on it that isn't necessarily in the show itself. I want the people watching it to draw their own narrative from that. It's something that continues to unfold through the series, and it's something I'm very, very eager for people to see. There's a lot to read into that, and a lot of it is subtextual, but it's a reading that's definitely fair." As a result of all this shipping fodder, as well as the show's own mission statement, it is fair to say that some have come to both this show and pairing because of what it signifies for queer representation, and excitement at having something so subtextually overt happening in a mainstream media project. And so it feels as if the show is welcoming a sort of shift that is not usually the dominant one, and as a result, should be supported. And some are just excited and happy to jump on board. Indeed, for some, it is a ship that they have been waiting for. Others are arriving because of the art and screenshots being shared around social media sites, like Tumblr and Twitter, as the art style this show utilizes, despite the controversy it brokered, is extremely topical and popular at the time of this recording. It is also heavily reminiscent of styles already prominent on Tumblr. As a result, the art is very shareable, and draws more eyes to the pairing and potentially to the show. Indeed, Catra and Adora's relationship has reached mainstream attention in terms of pop culture-based new media news outlets. Many people are huge fans of the villain-hero dynamic, especially when it is at the forefront, so some feel this ship was almost a guaranteed success, to the point where some feel, as mentioned, that it will be canon, and that this is the series' overall romantic arc, which people anticipate the series will have, as there is already the are they or aren't they couple of Seahawk and Mermista, which brings up some interesting concerns about this pairing that must be addressed before we get to the cons. While Stevenson has already shied away from promising anything directly, fans have already begun to prepare for what they hope to see in canon, and in some cases what they expect to see. Some fear what will happen if this ship, and indeed this series as a whole, does not unfold the way that fans expect. A fear born of some previous fandom shipping meltdowns, based upon fandom's expectations not being met. For while Stevenson may not be promising a definite pairing, she is promising a lot in terms of show depth, and the series already has a huge spotlight upon it, largely because of the controversy that preceded it, and now because of its overtly progressive themes, and overall ambition, which has led to the series amassing much praise and critical reviews. Audience reviews are more mixed, though also on a general positive trend, depending upon where one is on the internet, though a concern has emerged that it is being overhyped, and that the talk surrounding it is so discourse heavy that it is keeping people away from the show who may otherwise have watched and enjoyed it. Some fear this gives the show a lot to live up to, and that the second season is going to be heavily scrutinized, while others fear it will become a series that is beyond reproach, even if issues present themselves. As a result, some are wary of shippers who have latched onto this pairing because of what the ship means, as they fear that should things go awry, the fandom and its shippers could become vitriolic. And some feel that what a show means is not large enough reason for a ship, though as mentioned, this is more fodder than many ships ever receive, and one should not judge how someone comes to a ship or a series, as that begins one's climb towards gatekeeping. Why one comes to a ship or series is less relevant than what they do and how they behave once they arrive. And so far, at the time of this recording in the She-Ra fandom, there is a push to try and keep it a positive, inclusive space, with varying degrees of success. With that said, let us turn to those who do not see the allure of this pairing. As with all all things, especially characters' relationships, multiple reads are always possible. And there are some who feel that because Catra and Adora grew up together, both viewing Shadow Weaver as a mother-like figure, that they share more of a sibling dynamic, as the two helped each other grow up and go through life's ups and downs. There are some who fear articulating this, as they do not wish their reads to be labeled as incorrect, despite the series creator being open to multiple reads, as some stand firmly behind what creators say, and others do not, adopting more of an the author is dead approach. And while that should open it up for all reads to be viewed equally, it can often lead to the attitude that what the majority of the fandom comes to believe should be seen as the correct read, which can lead to instances where fanon impacts how the canon is viewed, as well as schisms within fandom. Some fear they will be labeled as homophobic if they do not support this ship or view it through a different lens. Here it must be reiterated that part of the appeal of fandom is the ability to recast the canon through one's own interpretive lens, and some are going to get vastly different reactions out of the same stimuli. The dominant read of Catradora at this point is, and will most likely remain, a queer one, with most viewing it as a positive if nuanced relationship. However, that does not invalidate those who do not read it that way, and while some may not due to issues surrounding homophobia, it must always be remembered that there could be other reasons as well, and not to jump to the worst assumptions when interacting with one's fellow fans. In fact, many who do not ship Catradora even have another Femslash ship in the show, that of Glimmadora, which for them has a more romantic arc. As always, whatever the dominant ship, there are those drawn to others, and as mentioned, all relationships in this show have their moments that could be read through a shippable lens if one was so inclined, which highlights something else that certain fans have mixed feelings about, and that is ship teasing. This is the process by which culturally aware producers can insert moments they know will be read as shippable due to either a trope's popularity or past fandom reactions, and deliberately add such moments in for the fans to play with. Where the contention comes in is the line between ship teasing and ship baiting. Most shows employ some level of ship teasing surrounding the couples they want fans to be excited about. Sometimes these couples are set to become canon, sometimes they are not, the latter being a more difficult line to walk, which can more firmly tip the scales towards baiting. Now, some feel that this is fair play and an acceptable marketing practice, and that this is part of the fandom exchange, while others view it more negatively and feel that companies should find other ways to market. Ship baiting can happen with any type of couple, though can often find itself attached to queer baiting. Going through screenshots of moments as highlighted on Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, PicDear, etc., it is clear that many moments have been read as shippable, and as moments of character growth, but some fans feel these scenes were superfluous and designed to get them shipping and invested in the shipping side of fandom. Now, mileage varies, as some feel this is not only a good thing, but a necessary thing, as one of the show's goals was the breaking down of binaries. As a result, showcasing so much potential ship teasing allows the audience to contemplate pairings they may not have before. Whether they come to fruition or not, these shippers feel it is good that the fandom will have such diverse ships in the first place, while some find it exploitative and an attempt to tap into what is known to be an extremely devoted fan base to bolster the show rather than allowing it to stand firm on other parts of its narrative. As mentioned, mileage varies. There aren't often series with this many potential deliberately queer ship tease moments, which galvanize certain groups but can feel like pandering to others. For those who feel like it may be pandering, it may make it hard to identify with this ship, and it can drive certain fans away, though this is usually a small percentage. As always, one must never forget to mention multi-shippers, who can oftentimes find themselves left out of shipping discourse, as well as those who do not enjoy villain-hero dynamics. These fans can often find themselves lost in the fray. Some find this dynamic inherently precarious and find that it lends itself better to darker fare, and find the idea of reconciliation fics, depending on the severity of each character's actions, to be a bit far-fetched. Not every trope is for everyone. Indeed, some would go even further to label this ship as abusive or creepy, or romanticization of potentially dangerous tendencies, viewing Catra's relationship with Adora as obsession, or stalking, or akin to. Some of these shippers feel that the dominant Femslash pairing should be a more positive one, as they do not feel the relationship is as nuanced as people think, or that the nuance does not negate the negativity. There is also another concern that we will briefly touch upon, because it speaks to a larger topic that really deserves its own video, and that is the characters' ages. This has become a common trend within fandom at the time of this recording. However, while there are some who are concerned about the actual ages of Catra and Adora, this concern shifts itself over to the fans themselves. There is a certain segment of fandom who believes that no one over the age of 18 should be creating any fan content for this couple or pairing, and that none of it should have any kind of sexual overtones or undertones. They believe that to engage with this pairing or this fandom past a certain age indicates pedophilia, a word that has been continuously misapplied applied within fandom. Incorrect usage of the term aside, let us take a brief moment to examine this. For many, what this concern truly reeks of is age gating, the idea that fandom is a youth-based activity, as age gating has become more and more prominent across multiple fanish sources, as fandom has begun to age. Over time, transformative fandom has become more generational, or at least more overtly generational, and in general, people no longer feel the need to leave the fandoms of their youth as they age, realizing that fandom can indeed carry on past childhood. As a result, there has begun to be a tiering within fandom, as certain members of the younger demographic do not understand why the older contingent doesn't just leave, and many of the older contingent don't understand why they would no longer be welcome. Others feel that this concern smacks of a hypocrisy, because with rare exceptions, all of the material that fandom is being derived from has been created by adults. Thus, by following the base logic, these series should never have been created in the first place, as sometimes undertones or even actual plots will be worked through within the source material itself. Some of the more snarky fans will pose the question as to whether or not these fans will leave the fandom once they pass their own age restriction. Once these fans themselves turn 19 or 20, will they then turn around and delete their fan art and fanfics? Others argue that it is difficult to gauge how old one is within fandom without imposing age barriers, and they are curious as to why one would want to do so, and they feel there's too much judgment as everyone has different thresholds for what is explicit and what is not. As well, many younger fans themselves will produce explicit material as a way to work through it, explore it, and just play with it and see how they feel about it, positive or negative. In short, many feel that the space should remain open, and that there are already stopgaps and measures in place for when people do go too far, or for when one feels uncomfortable. If one is looking to avoid age gating, it happens a fair bit on Tumblr. While it can of course occur anywhere, it does have a higher instance on this platform. There are also certain discords that are prone to this type of activity, but discords are a more insular community and it is easier to create one's own to counteract that. However, there are some who hold firm that younger fandoms are for younger people and that they should remain that way, or at the very least that their content should be a bit more curated and that people should be mindful of the potential age of the fans who may be there when they post, as every fandom is different and thus fans feel they should be treated as such, making a distinction between creating content for, say, She-Ra or My Hero Academia versus creating content for Dora the Explorer or the PJ Masks. Many fans feel that there is a happy medium that can be reached. As mentioned in our first She-Ra vid, there are some who are awaiting more transformative She-Ra content and find there is not as much as they expected. If you want to find out more about that, please check out our previous video where we go over it in detail. Click the card or the link will be down below. Catradora is definitely having a moment at the time of this recording. People in general are excited about this ship and want to see where these two's adventure goes. Are you guys Catradora shippers, or do you have another She-Ra pairing? How do you feel about the accusations of ship bait? And how have you found the fandom so far? Share all of your thoughts down below, and you know the drill. Answer as many questions as you can, numbered if possible, because I love a good essay comment. No more questions, that was enough. Thank you as always for taking some time out of your day to spend it discussing shipping and fandom with me. I always appreciate it. If you haven't already, please do subscribe and hit that bell notification so that you never miss a vid. I will see you all when I can, and until then, let's get to the outro. Bye-bye. This has been Shipper's Guide to the Galaxy. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Special thanks to all of my patrons, names on the side, for helping to make these videos possible. There are, as always, more videos coming soon, so until then, stay tuned, for there are as many ships out there as there are stars in the sky.